Janelle Brown just dropped a bombshell that has Sister Wives fans absolutely reeling. In episode 11, she casually mentioned inviting Kody to join her for something deeply personal, placing their late son Garrison's military headstone together. And the moment those words left her mouth, viewers across social media erupted with one collective question. Is TLC really about to turn a grieving mother's most sacred moment into primetime content? Because let's be brutally honest here. This network has spent an entire season walking a razor's edge with Garrison's memory. Some moments have felt genuinely touching. The family sharing stories, the siblings honoring their brother, the quiet tributes woven throughout the episodes. But other moments, they've felt like something else entirely. Something that makes your stomach turn if you think about it too long. And now we're potentially heading toward footage of Kody and Janelle at a military ceremony for their deceased son. Cameras rolling, microphones capturing every word. TLC executives somewhere calculating the ratings potential of parental grief on display. Fans are not having it. The comment sections are flooded with accusations. The Reddit threads are on fire. And the question everyone keeps asking is whether this crosses a line that should never be crossed. Because there's honoring someone's memory and then there's turning tragedy into a storyline. And right now, a whole lot of people believe TLC is dangerously close to the latter. Here's what makes this situation so explosive. Viewers have been watching this family for nearly 2 decades. They watched Garrison grow up on screen. They saw him as a kid goofing around with his siblings. They watched him become a young man, join the National Guard, and try to build his own life. And then in March of 2024, they learned he was gone, just 25 years old. A life cut devastatingly short. So when TLC decided to address his passing on screen, fans understood it was inevitable. The show couldn't just pretend nothing happened. But what viewers expected was sensitivity, restraint, a network understanding that some moments are too sacred for entertainment. Instead, what they got has left many feeling deeply uncomfortable. And the headstone revelation in episode 11 has become a flashpoint for everything fans have been worried about since the season premiere. Because if TLC films that ceremony, if they turn a military honor into a scene complete with confessional interviews and dramatic music, then what exactly are we watching anymore? Is this a family processing grief? Or is this a production company mining tragedy for content? The answer to that question matters. It matters for Garrison's memory. It matters for his siblings who are still mourning. It matters for Janelle, who has somehow maintained grace through unimaginable pain. And honestly, it matters for all of us who watch reality television and wonder where the ethical boundaries actually exist. But that was just the beginning of this controversy, because TLC's track record suggests this network learned absolutely nothing from its past scandals, and viewers have the receipts to prove it. If you want to understand why Sister Wives fans are so suspicious right now, you need to understand exactly who they're dealing with. TLC has earned a reputation over the years that makes viewers skeptical of every single production choice. This is not a network known for restraint. This is not a network celebrated for handling sensitive topics with care. This is the network that critics have literally labeled the home of exploitative reality television. Let's take a walk down memory lane, shall we? Remember 19 Kids and Counting, the wholesome family show that TLC promoted for years before scandal erupted and exposed what was happening behind the scenes? The network didn't just cancel the show quietly, they milked every ounce of drama from the fallout before finally pulling the plug. And even then, they spun off another series because apparently the controversy was too profitable to abandon completely. Then there was Here Comes Honey Boo Boo, a show that built its entire premise on mocking a family's lifestyle for entertainment. When scandal hit that production, TLC scrambled to distance themselves. But the damage was done. The network had shown exactly what kind of content they were willing to air, if it meant ratings. And who could forget Toddlers and Tiaras, a show that drew massive criticism for what many called inappropriate depictions of young children. Parents, advocacy groups, and media critics all raised alarms, but TLC kept the cameras rolling because controversy equals conversation, and conversation equals viewers. This is the pattern. This is who TLC has shown themselves to be over and over again. They push boundaries, they court controversy, they prioritize entertainment value over ethical considerations. And when things blow up in their faces, they act surprised while quietly counting the profits. So when this same network decides to handle a young man's death on camera, forgive fans for being skeptical. Forgive them for watching every editorial choice with suspicion. Forgive them for wondering whether Garrison Brown's memory is being honored or harvested. Here's what makes this even more frustrating. We know it's possible to handle death on reality television with dignity. When Captain Phil Harris passed away during Deadliest Catch, Discovery Channel showed the world how it could be done. Cameras were limited, footage was restricted, the family maintained control. Critics praised the series for smuggling integrity into a morally bankrupt genre. That was the gold standard. That was proof that networks can choose sensitivity over sensationalism when they actually want to. But TLC, they've never demonstrated that same commitment. Their history suggests they'll always lean toward drama, toward spectacle, toward whatever generates the most buzz, regardless of who gets hurt in the process. And fans know this. They've watched it happen too many times to pretend otherwise, which is exactly why the Brown family's own concerns before this season aired feel so prophetic now, because someone very close to Garrison tried to warn everyone about what was coming, and her words are hitting differently today. Before season 19 even premiered, someone inside the Brown family sounded the alarm. Kody Brown Padron, Garrison's stepsister, went public with her concerns about how TLC planned to handle his death. And her words were not subtle. She was livid, she was nervous, and she made it crystal clear that she had zero confidence in the network's approach. Kody revealed that she'd heard stories about what TLC was planning. She knew their ideas for addressing Garrison's passing on camera, and according to her, she didn't love any of them. Not a single one. That's not mild concern from a grieving family member. That's someone who saw the production plans and felt sick about what was coming. Her demand was simple and heartbreaking. She wanted whatever aired to be about Garrison, not about petty grievances between family members, not about anyone else's drama or relationships, just about him, about honoring who he actually was, about respecting a young man who deserved better than becoming a plot point in his family's ongoing television saga. Think about that for a moment. A family member had to publicly beg a television network to keep the focus on her dead brother instead of manufactured drama. That tells you everything you need to know about the concerns swirling behind the scenes. But here's where things get even more disturbing. Sources close to the situation have revealed that Kody has since said Robin is no longer in her life. And the reason? Because of what happened at Garrison's funeral. The details remain murky, but the implication is devastating. Something occurred during one of the most painful moments of this family's existence that permanently fractured relationships. And now fans are left wondering, what exactly happened at that funeral? What did Robin do or say that caused such a permanent rift? And more importantly, how much of that tension is TLC planning to exploit for future episodes? Because if this network has footage of funeral drama, does anyone actually believe they'll leave it on the cutting room floor? Does anyone trust TLC to prioritize family healing over ratings potential? History suggests otherwise. History suggests they'll tease it in promos, build anticipation across episodes, and deliver maximum emotional devastation during sweeps week. Kody saw this coming. She tried to warn people. She went public with her concerns specifically because she understood what TLC was capable of doing to her brother's memory. And now, watching the season unfold, her fears seem more justified with every passing episode. The family wanted dignity. They wanted respect. They wanted Garrison remembered as the funny, loving, complicated person he actually was. Not as content, not as storyline fuel, not as tragedy porn designed to make viewers cry on Sunday nights. But TLC had other plans, and the editing choices throughout this season have exposed exactly how far the network was willing to go to reshape narratives and maximize drama. What Reddit detectives uncovered next would prove that nothing about this season was as organic as it appeared. The internet is undefeated when it comes to detective work, and Sister Wives fans on Reddit have been working overtime this season, analyzing every frame of footage for signs of manipulation. What they found has only deepened suspicions about TLC's true intentions, because the editing choices throughout season 19 tell a story the network probably hoped nobody would notice. It started with Kody's confessionals. Sharp-eyed viewers spotted something bizarre happening with his hair. In certain talking head segments, his hair appears short. Then suddenly it's long again, then short. The inconsistency was jarring enough that fans started documenting every instance, and the pattern that emerged was telling. When Kody appears angry or defensive about the past, his hair is shorter. That's footage filmed before everything changed. But when he appears emotional, remorseful, or reflective about damage caused, his hair is noticeably longer. That's footage filmed after Garrison's passing. TLC was literally splicing together confessionals from completely different time periods to construct a narrative that didn't exist organically. Then there were the game night scenes that eagle-eyed viewers flagged immediately. Sol and Ariella appeared noticeably older than they should have been based on the supposed timeline. The kids had visibly grown, their faces had matured. These weren't scenes filmed during the original production window. They were recently shot footage inserted to fill gaps or create storylines that didn't originally exist. Outdoor scenes between Kody and Robin raised similar red flags. The lighting was different, the setting felt off. Viewers speculated these conversations were filmed specifically to address developments that occurred after principal photography wrapped. In other words, TLC went back and manufactured content to reshape how the season would unfold. This is not organic reality television. This is careful construction designed to maximize emotional impact while maintaining plausible deniability. The network can claim they're simply documenting what happened, but the evidence suggests something far more calculated. They're building narratives, shaping stories, deciding which version of events viewers get to see. And when it comes to Garrison's memory, that manipulation becomes deeply troubling, because if TLC is willing to splice confessionals and insert freshly filmed scenes throughout the season, what else are they willing to do? How much of the grief we're watching is genuine, and how much has been produced for maximum emotional impact? Fans feel manipulated. They feel like they're watching a carefully constructed performance rather than authentic family moments. And that realization has transformed how they view every scene involving Garrison's memory. Nothing feels trustworthy anymore. Nothing feels real. The production anomalies prove that TLC scrambled to reshape this season after tragedy struck. They retrofitted footage, they manufactured moments, they edited together a version of reality that served their purposes rather than simply documenting what happened. But nothing would prepare viewers for the scene that sparked the biggest controversy of the entire season. When Kody picked up a shovel and started digging his own son's grave on camera, the internet absolutely exploded. The moment played out on screen like something from a fever dream. Kody Brown, the man who spent years as an absent father to so many of his children, picked up a shovel and began digging Garrison's grave. Cameras captured every thrust into the earth, every bead of sweat, every carefully framed shot of a father supposedly honoring his son through physical labor. Kody called it one of the most important things he'd ever done. He described it as his final ode to his boy. The network clearly positioned this as a redemptive moment. A father doing something meaningful, something raw and real and deeply personal. But viewers saw something entirely different. They saw performance. They saw a man who forgot that audiences have watched him for nearly 2 decades. They saw someone who seemed to believe digging a grave on camera would somehow erase years of documented neglect and emotional distance. The backlash was immediate and brutal. Fans flooded social media calling the entire scene inappropriate. They questioned why Kody's brothers, men who barely knew Garrison, were featured helping with the dig while his adult sons were notably absent. If this moment was truly about honoring Garrison, why weren't Hunter and Gabriel there with shovels in their hands? Why weren't the siblings who actually grew up with him given this final act of service? Instead, viewers watched Kody turn grave digging into a production. His brothers provided supporting roles. The cameras captured carefully composed shots. And somewhere in an editing bay, producers selected the most emotionally impactful footage to air. One commenter put it perfectly. They said the scene was completely performative. That Kody seemed to have forgotten he's on a reality show where viewers have seen everything. We watched him prioritize Robin for years. We watched him dismiss his other children's needs. We watched him blow up relationships and blame everyone but himself. And now we're supposed to believe that digging a grave represents genuine fatherly love? We're supposed to forget everything we witnessed and accept this carefully staged moment as authentic grief? The criticism cut deeper than just the optics. Fans pointed out the fundamental hypocrisy of a man who couldn't be bothered to maintain relationships with his living children, suddenly wanting credit for physical labor after one of them died. Where was this energy when Garrison was alive and struggling? Where was this dedication when his son needed a present father rather than a performative one? Some defended Kody, arguing that grief manifests differently for everyone, that perhaps digging the grave was genuinely meaningful to him regardless of how it appeared on camera. But those voices were drowned out by the overwhelming sentiment that this moment represented everything wrong with how TLC was handling Garrison's memory. The grave scene felt exploitative, it felt staged, it felt like exactly the kind of content Mike Kelty had warned about. But then something even more devastating emerged. A text message from Garrison himself that would fuel demands for the show's complete cancellation. Sometimes a single detail changes everything. Sometimes one piece of information reframes an entire conversation and makes you see the situation with devastating clarity. For Sister Wives fans demanding accountability, that detail arrived in the form of a text message. A message Garrison Brown sent to production before his death that has become a rallying cry for those calling for the show's cancellation. The text was gut-wrenching in its simplicity. Garrison wrote that he wanted to hate them for sharing the good times, but he couldn't. He said he missed those days. Those words hang in the air now, haunting everyone who reads them. A young man who grew up on camera, expressing complicated feelings about having his life documented for public consumption, reaching out to the very people who filmed his childhood. Think about what that message reveals. Garrison wasn't at peace with being a reality television subject. He had conflicted emotions about his life being entertainment for strangers. He wanted to resent the intrusion but found himself nostalgic for happier times that were inextricably linked to the cameras always being present. This is someone who never really had a choice. He was a child when Sister Wives began. He didn't consent to having his formative years broadcast to millions. He didn't sign up for public scrutiny of his family's dysfunction. He was simply born into a situation where cameras were as common as furniture, and his most personal moments became content. And now that text message forces an uncomfortable question. Does TLC bear some moral responsibility for what happened? Did growing up under constant surveillance contribute to the struggles Garrison faced as an adult? Can a network profit from someone's childhood and then wash their hands of any accountability when that person's life ends tragically? Critics demanding cancellation point to this message as evidence that the show itself caused harm. They argue that Garrison's complicated relationship with production reflects something deeply broken about the entire enterprise. That perhaps some families should never have cameras in their homes, that perhaps some stories shouldn't be told in real time across decades. The text has become a flashpoint for larger conversations about reality television's human cost. We've seen cast members from various shows struggle with fame they never sought. We've watched people crumble under public scrutiny they weren't equipped to handle. And in the worst cases, we've witnessed lives end while networks continue profiting from the footage. Garrison's message suggests he understood something painful about his own existence. He was both grateful for and damaged by the experience of being filmed. He couldn't fully hate it, but he couldn't fully embrace it either. He was trapped somewhere in between, missing the good times while presumably struggling with everything those cameras represented. That complexity deserves acknowledgement, that pain deserves recognition, and that text deserves serious consideration when discussing whether Sister Wives should continue. But Garrison wasn't the only brown child ready to speak hard truths. His sibling Leon was about to expose their father's apology tour as complete fiction. While TLC has been busy crafting Kody's redemption narrative this season, someone who actually knows the truth decided to blow the whole thing apart. Leon Brown, Kody and Mary's child, took to Instagram in late November 2025 and delivered a takedown that left no room for interpretation, and their words exposed everything viewers suspected about the so-called apology tour. According to Leon, Kody never reached out after Garrison died. Let that sink in for a moment. A father loses a son to suicide, and he doesn't even contact his other children to check on them. He doesn't call to see how they're processing the grief. He doesn't text to offer support or share in the mourning. He just doesn't reach out at all. But it gets worse. Leon revealed that Kody actually ignored them at Garrison's funeral. The man showed up to bury his son and couldn't even acknowledge his other child, who was standing right there grieving the same loss. What kind of father attends a funeral and pretends certain family members don't exist? What kind of person uses a tragedy as an opportunity to continue punishing children for perceived disloyalty? Leon didn't mince words about what they witnessed on screen this season either. They called Kody's televised apology storyline exactly what it is: a lie. Not a misunderstanding, not a difference in perspective, a straight-up lie being broadcast to millions of viewers who are supposed to believe Kody has changed. The Instagram statement labeled Kody a joke of a father. And honestly, after everything we've witnessed over 19 seasons, that assessment feels generous. This is a man who systematically destroyed relationships with the majority of his children, who chose one wife and her kids over everyone else, who blamed his other children for not trying hard enough while he made zero effort himself. And now he wants credit for an apology tour. He wants viewers to believe he's genuinely seeking reconciliation while his own children are publicly calling him a liar. The disconnect between Kody's television narrative and actual reality has never been more stark. Leon's statement matters because it comes from inside the family. This isn't speculation from fans or assumptions from commentators. This is a direct witness to Kody's behavior, providing first-hand testimony that contradicts everything TLC is selling. When your own child says you ignored them at their brother's funeral, no amount of editing can spin that into something acceptable. The timing of Leon's revelation was also significant. It came right as the season was building toward more Garrison content. Right as TLC was positioning Kody as a grieving father seeking to make amends, Leon essentially told the audience not to believe what they were watching. that the man on screen performing remorse is the same man who couldn't be bothered to acknowledge his own children at a funeral. While Kody plays the reformed patriarch on television, Janelle has been handling her grief with remarkable dignity, and the contrast between them couldn't be more devastating. In the midst of all this chaos and controversy, one person has somehow maintained composure that defies comprehension. Janelle Brown lost her son. She's had to watch his memory become television content. She's navigated a complicated co-parenting dynamic with an ex-husband who abandoned their family. And through all of it, she has carried herself with a grace that makes everyone else look small by comparison. Her public tributes to Garrison have been nothing short of beautiful. On the 6-month anniversary of his passing, she shared words that broke hearts across the internet. She wrote about how he appears in her photo memories almost every day, how sometimes it doesn't even feel like he's gone. And then she remembers she won't be getting a call or text from him anymore, and it all comes rushing back. That's raw grief expressed with vulnerability and honesty. No performance, no agenda, just a mother missing her son and sharing that pain with people who genuinely care. On the 1-year anniversary, Janelle posted a photo with a quote from Garrison's favorite movie, Dragonheart. The words were simple but devastating. To the stars, Bowen, to the stars. If you know the film, you understand the significance. It's about legacy, about honoring those who've passed, about believing that the people we love continue on somewhere beyond our reach. That Janelle chose something meaningful to Garrison specifically, something that reflected who he actually was rather than who she wanted him to be, speaks volumes about how she's approaching his memory. She's honoring the real person, the young man who loved certain movies and had specific interests and was so much more than a storyline on a television show. In her interviews, Janelle has been remarkably forthcoming about Garrison's struggles. She explained that he dealt with anxiety and depression, that he started drinking as a way to soothe those demons, that it became an animal he couldn't get control of no matter how hard he tried. She's not hiding the difficult parts or pretending everything was perfect. She's being honest because she wants other families to recognize warning signs. What strikes viewers most is what Janelle hasn't done. She hasn't publicly criticized TLC despite having every reason to be furious. She hasn't attacked Kody on social media even though he deserves it. She hasn't turned her grief into a weapon or used her platform for revenge. She's simply focused on honoring her son and raising awareness about mental health. The contrast with Kody couldn't be more stark. While he performs remorse for cameras and ignores his children at funerals, Janelle quietly does the actual work of processing loss. While he seeks credit for digging a grave, she shares genuine memories that keep Garrison's spirit alive. While he constructs narratives, she speaks truth. And now Janelle has invited this same man to share a sacred moment with her, the military headstone ceremony that has fans so concerned. What that invitation reveals about their complicated dynamic raises troubling questions. And so we return to the moment that sparked this entire controversy, episode 11. Janelle casually mentioning that she's invited Kody to join her for something profoundly personal, placing Garrison's military headstone at his final resting place. Just the two of them, parents united in grief for a son who served his country with honor. On the surface, it sounds touching. A mother extending an olive branch during the most painful chapter of her life. Two people who couldn't make their marriage work, finding common ground through shared loss. The kind of moment that might actually mean something if it happened privately, away from cameras and producers and network executives calculating advertising rates. But that's not what's happening here, is it? This moment isn't private. It's been teased on television, it's been discussed in confessionals, and unless something dramatic changes, TLC cameras will likely be there when that headstone gets placed in the Wyoming soil. Janelle described the symbolism of handing Garrison to Kody in that moment. She acknowledged their big differences while emphasizing that in that moment they were just parents. And there's something heartbreaking about watching a woman who has been so consistently dignified extend grace to a man who has shown her none. But fans can't help wondering whether this is truly Janelle's choice or whether production pressure played a role. The family remains financially tied to sister wives. Their income depends on filming content that keeps viewers engaged. And what's more engaging than estranged parents reuniting at their dead son's grave? The cynicism feels ugly but earned. TLC has given audiences no reason to believe they'd leave a moment like this unfilled. Every instinct this network has demonstrated suggests they'll capture every tear, every awkward silence, every loaded glance between Janelle and Kody as they navigate impossible emotions. Viewers fear what comes next. They fear dramatic music swelling as the headstone is lowered into place. They fear confessional interviews dissecting what each parent was feeling in that sacred moment. They fear TLC turning a military honor into manufactured drama complete with previews, hyping the emotional payoff. Garrison served nearly 9 years in the Nevada National Guard. He earned that military headstone through dedication and service to his country. That honor belongs to him and should be treated with the solemnity it deserves. Not packaged as content, not edited for maximum emotional impact, not used to prop up Kody's redemption narrative or boost ratings during a crucial week. The headstone ceremony represents everything fans have been worried about since learning TLC would address Garrison's death on screen. It's a test of whether this network can actually exercise restraint, whether they can recognize that some moments are too sacred for entertainment, whether they've learned anything from the criticism leveled at them all season. Based on their track record, hope feels foolish, but hope is all viewers have at this point. And that brings us to the impossible question that nobody can definitively answer. The question that haunts every conversation about reality television and tragedy. This is the question that has no clean answer. The question that haunts every discussion about Sister Wives this season. The question that forces us to examine not just TLC's choices, but our own complicity as viewers. Where exactly does honoring someone's memory end and exploitation begin? The network would argue they've handled everything appropriately. They'd point to the family approval process. They'd note that cameras were positioned at a distance during the burial service. They'd highlight how the Browns maintained control over what aired. Host Sukanya Krishnan defended TLC publicly, saying they did a beautiful job honoring Garrison and that she applauds them for towing the line between respect and understanding. But can we really trust a network with TLC's history to self-police? Can we believe that financial pressures don't influence what families feel comfortable refusing? When your income depends on filming content, how freely can you actually say no to production requests? The reality television industry faced a reckoning after multiple suicides connected to shows like Love Island. Cast members took their own lives after experiencing the pressures of fame and public scrutiny. The UK implemented mandatory mental health support for contestants, but viewership dropped when drama decreased, revealing an uncomfortable truth. The genre inherently relies on high levels of conflict and emotional intensity that can damage participants. Sister Wives exists in this same ecosystem. The show needs drama to survive. It needs conflict and tension and emotional moments that keep audiences coming back. And when real tragedy strikes, the temptation to incorporate that pain into the narrative must be overwhelming for producers whose jobs depend on ratings. Garrison grew up in this world. He never chose it. He was a child when cameras first entered his home, and now his death has become part of the same content machine that documented his entire life. There's something deeply troubling about that circularity, something that should make all of us uncomfortable about what we consume for entertainment. Perhaps the most honest answer is that no network can genuinely honor someone's memory while simultaneously profiting from their death. Perhaps the very act of filming grief transforms it into something else, something performed rather than felt, something packaged rather than processed, something that serves corporate interests regardless of how sensitively it's edited. The Browns will continue filming because that's their livelihood. TLC will continue airing Garrison-related content because it generates engagement. And viewers will continue watching because we've invested nearly 2 decades in this family's story. But maybe we should sit with the discomfort. Maybe we should acknowledge that there are no good guys here. Just people trapped in a system that turns human pain into product. Garrison deserved better than becoming a storyline. His memory deserves more than ratings calculations. And his family deserves the space to grieve without cameras capturing every moment. Drop your thoughts below, like, subscribe, and stay tuned. The next video is waiting, and you won't want to miss what's coming next.